Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Real Deal Podcast. This is episode 7. I'm Kevin,
I'm Mike.
and we're here with a great show for you tonight. Well, we believe it's great. We are going to be talking about our 2021 fishing goals, how we're going to finish out the rest of the year, what our goals are, what we plan to do. And then we're going to talk about next year and what those goals may look like. So you'll get a in-depth perspective from myself and Mike about what we aspire to do fishing wise. Anyway, tackle, gear. I mean, we really never script these shows. I know it may seem like we do, but maybe we should start, Mike. Uh,
I think
anyway,
it's
I, I
enough just to start
I
with a great
digress.
idea. We want it to be organic. We don't want it to
Mm-hmm.
be like a show. We want it to be
Mm-hmm.
a great conversation.
Yeah, so yeah, we got that to talk about tonight, and Mike is going to be leading the show. He's going to be asking me these questions, and then he's going to be responding to them himself. So, again, thank you to our Boom Squad members who are in here live, and thank you to everybody listening to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, we've been doing this for about 7 weeks now. Doesn't seem like that long, but we've had a great time so far. Go back and check out the other episodes. And if you want to support the Real Deal Fishing Podcast, my YouTube channel, Palmetto Cats, on YouTube, go to www.shoppalmettocats.com. You can get yourself some Palmetto Cats merch. You can check out community events like live tournaments. You can register for events if you want to participate in some of these things. So go check it out. It'll be a good way to support the channel if you like what you're listening to. If you can't do that, just listening is enough for us. So enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get talking about fishing, man. That's what we're here to do.
I've I've been ready to talk about fishing at least since Friday, maybe Thursday or Friday, and we meaning Kevin and I kick around these ideas, and if you have ideas, we welcome you to send Kevin an email or send me an email,
Absolutely.
or if you have my phone number, send me a text. Anything that's fishing related, anything along this journey, any detail, any aspect. To me, I look forward to talking about it for an hour every week. Well, over the course of this weekend, I was kicking around this thought in my head, and I couldn't shake it. Now, of course, I think about fishing all the time, but this past weekend, I really had a rather unique opportunity to fish with very different goals each day. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to fish on Saturday or Sunday. I wanted to, I tried, but it just didn't fit into the situation. But anyway, what that did was it really sparked my thought into why do you fish?
Mm,
And not just how do you fish in general or why do you fish in general, but why are you fishing today? And does that change tomorrow? Is it different tomorrow and why? Um, so
that's a great
expanding
question.
expanding upon that thought too, Kevin, we discussed, is this a checklist of sorts? Do you have to do certain things to to reach your own personal level of accomplishment as an angler? So, as I usually do, I go into a hyperbabble mode, and Kevin's like, "Okay, wait a second here. Let's talk about this because this
This
is a
is
good
usually
topic."
this is usually where I multitask and I just
Yep.
listen and I'm doing other things.
I
Like
can see you doing it right now.
yeah, many of you may not know, but after the show, Mike and I usually talk for another half an hour, and then I'll be downloading the podcast, titling it, putting the hashtags in, doing all this other stuff, and uploading it. And Mike's talking, and I'm listening and responding to him, but I'm multitasking because Mike, is full of ideas. But I digress. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I love that you're doing it right now, and you're talking about how this flows because some of the people are viewing this live right now. Other
Mhm.
people will be listening to it later. But certainly, I look at this as a great opportunity to speak about fishing with a friend for
Mhm.
X amount of time. But we have a pretty unique situation here in the fact that I don't even understand all of it. I'm not the tech guy. I'm just the hyper battle guy who loves to talk about fishing. So Kevin's talking about doing all these things, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm in. I'm all in, but I can't help do that. So anyway, getting back to the topic.
You know that what that reminds me of is that guy on SNL that Jimmy Fallon played, your company's computer guy. I hate to interrupt your game of Minecraft here and move, move.
Oh gosh.
Uh, but
So
yeah,
anyway,
fishing.
Kevin got this idea that I would lead this conversation, which of
It's your
course
idea.
is
You
interesting.
should.
It's interesting, but in truth, I have a lot of questions. And I have a lot of questions not just for Kevin, but for all of us.
Mm.
Because when we think about this, some people really do have quite a list of goals. Now, Kevin mentioned goals for the rest of the year. I was thinking goals for the rest of your fishing life. So, trying to fit all this into 1 hour, we're going to go some different directions. We're going to go a little left, we're going to go a little right, and then it's the great part about this is I don't really know that anybody's answers are wrong
Mm-mm.
because it's your journey.
Well, and
It's
then you
what
can
you
also talk about different ways to answer because, we're doing a podcast, so there's other goals. Doing YouTube, there's other goals. Then you have goals like new species goals, PB goals, you know, etc. So, you know, your goal, you just have to specify. They may be all the same, you know, but more than likely they're not. More than likely they're all different, and the timelines will vary. So that's why I think it's really interesting that you come up with this idea. And as far as you leading it, it is your idea. So I'm ready to hear all the things that have been crawling around in that mind.
okay. Well, let's go back to last week.
Cool.
Excuse me. Last week, I took Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. And then I realized that I really needed to work on Wednesday. So I did work on Wednesday. I gave up my day off. I worked on Wednesday. Now, Thursday, I absolutely wanted it off because I wanted to take my dad and my grandpa fishing. And I enlisted some help. I spoke with my sister Trish, and she shifted some work hours around so she could also show up. Originally, I wanted her to show up with her cast net because I got to tell you, she is a dynamo with this cast net. And, who doesn't want the freshest, most awesome bait you can have to improve
Right.
your chances of actually catching something?
Right.
Now, as it turned out, she had already had a bunch of bait in the bait freezer because Trish is fully invested now. Cast net, bait freezer. I mean, she's all in. She's very inspiring to me over
Thank you,
this last
Spencer.
year or two. Yes, thank you, Spencer. And so she shows up to pick up my grandpa and my dad. Grandpa's 93. He's going to be 94 at the bottom of the month. Now, he didn't really know what was going on. Excuse me. He's like, "What do you mean go fishing? I don't have my rods ready."
Get that drink, soothe the throat.
Well, I had prepared, I believe I had 14 rods. So really I was going to try to be the guide.
Sorry, y'all.
No.
Mike's got a dry throat. So
Yeah.
he's trying
I
to
got
pop
dry throat.
some
Got a problem going on here.
lozenges. Get that
We're-
dry throat.
The leader's going down. So anyway, we got Grandpa to understand. Get in the
Right.
car, show
Mhm.
up. I got all the gear. Trisha's got all the bait.
Mhm.
I had some other baits. Once again, chicken failed me. But next time I think I'll put garlic on it like somebody else had said. But
Mm.
anyway, different topic. So the goal was to get Dad and Grandpa fishing. And the truth of it is, Dad's in and out of the hospital right now with some medical challenges.
Mhm.
So we don't know if he's going to have the strength to fish at a different moment between now and the end of our season, which is coming very soon because I live in
Mhm.
Iowa. Water freezes here in winter.
Mhm.
So got them out. They were enjoying it. Dad and Trish actually turned their attention because none of the 11 catfish and carp rods were seeing any action. They turned their attention to a bait fish opportunity. They started pan fishing just below this handicap dock that we were set up on, and they did catch several little green sunfish. And they had I think they might have had a little largemouth. Can't remember, but
Mhm.
anyway, see, even there in our fishing trip, the goal changed.
Mhm.
Goal changed to get anything, get that little
So
lure.
now you're talking about short-term goals.
Yeah.
So or goals that are that day goal. So
Hmm.
the goal of the day. So let's get to so what is your usual goal when you go out on a trip like that? So that day it was just to get dad and granddad fishing.
Yep.
So it really didn't matter what kind of fish, right?
Yep.
You would
Absolutely.
you would just set your heart on catfish or carp.
Yep. Typically, my goal is just to try to get to go,
Mm,
just to
fair enough.
get to the bank because it seems like life is always so busy
Hmm.
and I can't just decide I'm going to go fish for 8 or 10 hours like I used to. It's just not in the cards right now.
Hmm.
Things are busy. My
Hmm.
daily schedule even changed. In the past, I could sneak out for maybe an hour or two in the afternoons and go fishing before I had to pick the kids up. The schedule doesn't work that way anymore because Lauren gets out of kindergarten right about when I was trying to sneak out of work right away. So
Hmm.
everything's kind of a little bit different. And that then made me start thinking. It's like, okay, well, today I wasn't trying to get myself a fish.
Hmm.
I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Made me feel good. Made me feel good that I was trying to do that for Dad and Gramps.
Right.
And it also made me feel really smart because I enlisted Trish. So that there might have made it a little bit more successful.
Secret
That's
weapon.
right. That's right. My brother also showed up with one of his sons. So it was pretty neat. We had some generations going on there. And his son Quentin is turning into quite a little angler himself. So that was very entertaining and inspiring for Gramps and for Dad.
Hmm.
Now, going to the next day,
Hmm.
the goal completely changed
Hmm.
because we had a guided fishing trip with river certified Spencer Bauer.
Hmm.
Now, he provides the boat, he provides the bait, he provides all that knowledge and we go fish for X amount of time. Had it all set up so I could pick up Lauren from school. Trish was going to meet us at the dock, and we're going fishing with Spencer. Now, for those of you who've seen his channel, or those of you who haven't, River Certified, check it out. He's a cool dude, and this guy lands some fish.
Hmm.
So there's a totally different goal for that day. The goal is let's get something big. Let's break a PB. Let's get a different species, whatever it may be, because prior to last Friday, I had never caught a flathead
Hmm.
and I'd only seen one. Well, after Friday, I've now seen three. Trish got one, I got one, and I think that we missed a couple. Also on the trip, Lauren is a huge focus.
Mhm.
As anyone who knows anything about fishing with kids, the more you focus on them catching a fish or having a good time, the longer you're going to last, the better time everybody's going to have.
Mhm.
And she did. She caught a buffalo, she caught a freshwater drum, and she ended the night with 20 minutes to go in our session. She ended the night breaking her personal best channel catfish. So
I
now
saw that thing. It was
it's now
huge.
it was almost as tall as she is. So
Because the one prior to that, she caught on that kids tournament,
yep,
and that
yep,
thing was big.
yep.
So she really
8.74.
she's killed it this year.
Yeah. So now that then made this a little bit more sentimental. You start pushing on the heart button when you start talking about kids catching fish, kids catching these gigantic, awesome fish, having that great experience. Um, I talk to my brother a lot about this, about why we fish the way we do, etc., etc. And my brother Dan and I agree that we always felt like we were kind of a burden or seen as a burden when we were fishing. And the only person who tried to help us fish specifically was Tone, my aunt. And then remember going out and fishing with a couple other people. My mom took us fishing a few times because it was affordable. It was affordable fun. And for the most part, she would make dough ball or crack open one can of
Mhm.
corn,
Mhm.
so it was cheap and we could do it. We already had equipment. So if we put the rods and the rigs together, mom would be like, okay, I will take you fishing. You have to do that. I'll get bait or we'll go outside, we'll catch worms or whatever. So, but the sentimental aspect now is I'm the dad.
Mhm.
And I don't know that I felt that way when I was a kid, but I can see how much this all means to Lauren. Now, just to add script to this, Lauren's in love with Spencer. It's just
She
totally
is.
true. She
And I
adores
can't
him.
believe she's gonna allow him to transition to Florida. I mean,
Well, there's
mm,
I
poor
don't know. I
Lauren.
always say that I always say I'll be fine if I never have to leave the borders of Iowa, but I would go other places
Mhm.
to
Especially if
still
you're gonna start a guide service.
yeah, I would go other places just to be able to fish with them again.
So it sounds
Hopefully
like to
not as far as
me,
Florida,
right?
but
It sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that most of your goals center around family, which is awesome. Um, is that something you see? Is that something that you concentrate on all the time, or is there a little part of you that has other goals? Like, I mean, you caught your flathead finally. You know, are there other fish on the list? Is there, you know, a place to visit to fish, etc.?
see now that's the interesting thing, and I I I can't understate this enough. Is that everybody is constantly changing and evolving. As
Hmm.
much as we think I'm still the same old guy that I was,
Hmm.
back in college or back in high school, whatever anybody wants to say, you're really not.
Hmm.
And I can say with complete certainty, after catching a 20-pound flathead, I need more of that in my life.
Mikey likey.
I liked that a lot. And it just buried that rod and it buried the handle of the rod in my gut
Which
and
is
just
cool
when you
because
thought
now
the fight was over, it wasn't.
you kind of have an appreciation now of what like a 72-pound flathead. I mean, what was that possibly like?
Yeah,
Now that you've experienced a 20, and it's like, wow,
this
I
is
need that.
fantastic. Now, what I will say is that I still have no desire to be a boat owner ever again in my life. And maybe that'll change in 15 years or 20 years. I don't know what. But as for right now, so nothing drastic has changed in that regard. I still want to be a bank fisherman. I still believe in the power of the guided trip, because that was our fourth adventure with Spencer, and each of them very different, but all of them such a tremendous learning opportunity, and just so much fun. It was almost surreal, because while we did not video anything, you will not see a video coming out of any of what had happened. It's like we were in one of his videos, because he's right there. Now,
Well, and then this trip, unlike the other ones, you caught a lot more or a lot bigger fish, definitely.
yes, yes. Trisha's flathead was probably 10 pounds, and we caught it within 2 minutes of being set up with baits in the spot. I mean, it just, and like they say, I guess I can say now, because I've experienced it.
I'm they now.
I know I'm part of that. I'm so excited about it. The bite was very subtle, but you could tell that something was inhaling that bait. And I know that because of what I've watched from all of our friends, you included, catching fish live, talking about the experiences. Now I've gone through it, and it really it makes sense now to me, because Spencer was saying, he's like, you see now why I gotta catch these fish. I have to catch a flathead. I continue to chase these flatheads. I get it now. That they say, the tug is a drug, or whatever they say. But that fish truly was something. Like, I may have only in the past, I thought maybe I had hooked 2 or 4 of them, and then I was outclassed because I didn't have the right equipment, or I was beaten to the snag point where they could get themselves free. Now I don't believe that anymore. Now I believe that I probably had hooked 1, not 4 or
Right.
5. I believe it was 1 that could have been a flathead, and all the rest of them were probably just very big channel cats, which also disappoints me, because I don't think there's anything wrong with a channel cat. We did a show about all of the state records, and to
Right.
think that I may have had, a slight chance at one of them really inspires me again, really amps me up, and just gets me ready to fish.
Now, do you think this will make you want to hunt flatheads more? So maybe you will drive around your own area a little more, looking for possible areas where there might be big flatheads?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't think of anything more than maybe 1 or 2 specific spots that I currently go to where there may be flathead there. But you also never know. I mean, we have this gigantic reservoir well, I won't say gigantic, 'cause other people have reservoirs that are like, 5 to 10 times bigger. But we have a big reservoir right here that I do fish, and I have to think that 3 places where I fish there's a chance there could be flathead in those areas. Now I know better how to think about that, and how to think about why before I was not geared properly, I would have been beaten no matter what in that contest, and I was. So that's very, very much a credit to everybody who does provide that content. I know that I try to give thanks for that, and even last night, Big Mike was fishing, and today in a chat, I told him, "Thank you for fishing last night. I really needed it," and I mean that, because I don't know when the next time I'm going to fish. I mean, I hope to fish on Saturday, but I don't know if I'll be able to. And Lauren's already asking me, when are we going again? And what had happened was Spencer had somebody who couldn't fill the guide trip as they had scheduled it.
Mhm.
So he's like, "Hey, if you guys want to go?" It's like, "Yeah, we want to go. Pencil me in. I'm ready."
Mhm.
And a little bit of weather change, little difference in the water, and we got our shot.
Big difference in fish.
Yeah, big difference in fish. And you talk about why do we do this? To me, being a fishing guide, the whole time I'm thinking, "Oh, that's great. You get to fish." Well, really, you don't.
Mm-mm.
You get to put other people on those fish, but you could see how much it meant to him that Trish got that first flathead, that Lauren, we caught a buffalo, and most other people probably would have turned it into bait, but we caught a buffalo, and it was on a lure.
Mm.
It just hammered this lure. Well, Lauren was disappointed because she was throwing the lure and nothing hit it. Well, then we got her up there, and she was checking out Trisha's flathead, and she had helped, and with that, it's a team effort. And
Mhm.
so there I am fishing, throwing this lure because I do this now because I've been inspired by
Mm.
our trips. And sure enough, this buffalo just put the hammer down on this lure. So Lauren's then upset instantly that I have a fish on the rod and she didn't. And I'm like, no, 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 get up here, get up here. Yeah,
Yeah,
bring this
come reel it
fish
in.
in. And I was really hoping that it was a decent sized walleye because we do have a nice walleye population here in Iowa. And the fight it was giving me kind of made me think, oh, maybe it's a smallmouth. I don't know. Smallmouth bass are excellent fighters. Well, as it turned out, and as it got finally to the surface, because it took a while, I saw a weird dorsal fin, and I'm like, oh, he's got a big fin. And I don't think that it threw anybody else off on the boat when they
No.
finally noticed it and netted it. It's like, yeah, it's a buffalo, but that's a new species. And Lauren is inspired to catch different species, so much to the point that I need to create a spreadsheet to mark down what she has caught and then probably to take notes because she's like, hey, I want to get some different lures and I want to catch this species next. And I didn't grow up that way. That was never my
Mhm.
goal. That was never a goal for any Murillo that I know of to think, hey, I want to try and catch every species of fish in Iowa. And yet here it is. That's something that Lauren has said. She said, I want to catch them all. And
How can you argue with that?
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And we had discussed prior to the show that you get this pure reaction and pure expression from children. And I'm sure you get it in whatever they do, whether they're playing football or whether they're hitting baseballs or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, I don't want to do anything other than fish. I am really that simple a man. I work, I spend money on gear because
I
I
didn't
want
used to be, but now that I found my niche, that's really all I want to do as well.
yeah. And I'm working through it because, like I said in other podcasts, that's not how we were raised. I don't believe we didn't have that
Mhm.
sort of a different thought and focus. We thought, okay, you're going to get yourself a good hook and throw a night crawler out there, and what you get, you get. And there's another thing too
Which I
that
mean,
right
that's a
there, a
great
lot of people fish
approach.
that way.
That's a great approach to catching multi-species because
It
anything
really
can get a
is.
worm.
It really is. Now here's an even funnier thing, and I hope you do laugh about this. We fish a terrific lake in northwestern Iowa called Spirit Lake, where a lot of our state records have come from that area and that lake specifically. One time, we went up there for a week. We all rented cabins at this resort, and this resort there's a little channel that goes from a slough out into the main lake, and they put a dock right on little
Mm.
channel way there. And 1 week with night crawlers on a hook, we caught 13 different species of fish off that
Wow.
same dock.
That's
Now
cool.
that was, I want to say, maybe 2006. So even 15 years later, I still didn't put it all together yet.
Mhm.
That, just like you said, that's multi-species angling. That's a way to get whatever's there.
Well, and like today I went out. I text you, and I made a short that I'll put up tomorrow. But I've tried the little gulp minnow before because I've seen kayak catfish use it, and never had any success. I could barely throw it. I would put weight on it to throw it out there. I didn't understand the 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 idiosyncrasies, the minute differences that you need to make it really fly and really be effective with it. So, he said on a live stream the other day, he's like, "Oh, you need 2 pound test monofilament, and this type of rod, and then it'll do what you want it to do." So I got me some 2 pound tests. It came in yesterday. I spooled it up, and I'm just sitting in the garage. I'm like, I got about an hour. So I was like, let me just run. The boat ramp is 5 minutes from my house. So I rode down there, in the car, pulled out the thing, and within, I don't know, 3 casts, I caught a bluegill. Now it was really small, but I'm fishing at the dock. And then I moved over because there wasn't anything else biting. The river's really swollen today. And so I went over under this little bridge and I threw in to the current, and I caught a 8-inch bass, largemouth bass, right off the bat, second cast. So, trying different things like that. Even though I'm not a bass fan, it was still fun to be able to throw in there where, people think there's no fish by the dock apparently because they all get in boats and go out. You can sit there and catch fish by the dock. But I got the idea because I went fishing on Saturday with Catfish Bill, and he had one, and just sitting in one spot, we caught a gar. I got a video coming out. We got a gar, a blue cat, 2 crappie, bluegill, and a largemouth bass from one spot. And other than the gar and the catfish, everything else came on the gulp minnow. It's like, how cool is that? You can just sit in one spot and cast in the same general area and pick off species like that. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that. Especially when we go camping next weekend on the Cooper River, or Santa Cooper meet and greet.
Yep.
I'm taking that rod with me, and I'm just gonna sit there while I'm waiting for the big takedown. Just pop that gulp minnow out there, So I guess that would be a goal for me. Is I really never had any experience or any luck lure fishing. In fact, last year or the year before, I guess, right when I was starting YouTube, a bunch of guys from church, we wanted to go out fishing together, and there's a new guy there, and I had a seat open on my boat and said, "Jump in," and they all wanted to go bass fishing, so I bought a spinning rod, and that was bass appropriate, I guess. I don't know. And I bought some soft plastics and some lures, and Mike, I'm not gonna lie to you, I threw lures for like 5 minutes. I
Yeah.
didn't catch anything, so I gave up.
So you gave up. Yep. Hey,
And
we're
so,
not
like,
being attacked by a clown. That's just the puppy deciding to get a chewy ball,
that's
squeaky
how
ball.
people know we're real, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that in real life, you're living right there.
If you heard
But
all that ruckus a minute ago, it's because he was chasing his tail. Puppy life.
Yep.
Hashtag puppy life.
But in the next part of the video, I ended up catching the first fish of the day because I ended up putting a bobber on and some red worms. So I never really given it a chance, and I guess it's just my belief and confidence in a lure or an artificial bait that I struggle with. So I've seen the gulp minnow work, and now it's worked for me So I'll probably use it a little more now that I've caught a couple of fish on it. I feel a little bit more confident, and then so that'll be a new goal for me.
Now, we also are big fans of the Gulp minnow here in Iowa. Trish is a big fan of it. And what's that? That's funny. We to me it's fascinating that 19 hours away it can be that effective on completely different species
Hmm.
too. I I can't believe you caught a gar. That's amazing.
Not on a
And
gulp minnow though.
okay. I
No,
was like,
everything
wow.
but the gar and the no that gar would have shredded that 2 pound test.
That's what I thought too. I was like, how lucky did you get?
No, we caught a blue cat we fished with shrimp. That's what the video is about, fishing with shrimp. So
Oh,
I caught a gar, a long nosed gar, beautiful actually,
yeah.
and a blue cat on shrimp. But so you talked
There's another
about,
thing right there. Fishing with different baits.
yeah, fishing with different baits.
Some people have that goal in their head to
Hmm.
figure out different baits for different times of the year. And
True.
that's what made me think about the bait bucket. What's in your bait bucket? Why do you use that? When do you use that? It's to me that's knowledge that I can't get on my own without going through a lot of trial and error. And and everybody in our community does seem so willing to help inform, and
Hmm.
some of them teach very well. So that gets back to the checklist. Do you feel that you're called to do that? Some people, I do believe, they are truly called to teach and to help others, and that's pretty impressive. And I just feel that I'm doing what I'm doing fishing with my kids, not because I want them to do exactly what I do, but maybe just to help them understand what it means to me. And fishing to me is very calming. It's a chance to settle down, to get away from work related issues, the hustle and bustle of daily life, and just get away from it, just to be able to sit out there. And sometimes my goal is to do just that. I'm wound up, I'm sick of work, I don't want to be in this grouchy mood anymore, and
Hmm.
I just want to sit out there and try to come back to center, just
Well,
recenter myself.
you know what kind of day I had. I mean, maybe most of y'all don't know, but Mike and I, most days we'll talk through the day at least for a little while, and the day was not the best. So to get out there and to just get to go fishing, even if it was only for 45 minutes today, it really was cool. And I even though it was a bass, it was fun. I hooked it and it put a little tug on that ultralight rod and that 2 pound test, and it felt like I was doing something. So, um, I want to talk about your other idea or the other part of goals. Like, what's something that, and I guess I'll go first. Like goals for the rest of the year and
Hmm.
goals for next year. And I'm going to go ahead and say it right here first. Next year, I'm going to focus most of my time, if not all my time, on the river, mastering my river. And people call me crazy because I live, if those of you who hadn't listened before, I live on Santee Cooper Lakes. Not on the lake, but close enough, 10 minutes away. And, but I've always fished this river, right? I've always had this river 5 minutes down the road from me, the Cooper River, which leads out to the ocean. And I've always only fished kind of one section of it. And my dad and I would fish for panfish, shellcracker, brim, bass sometimes, catfish. But that's pretty much it. We really didn't explore or I didn't explore too much. He's grown up on the river his whole life, and he's had a whole lifetime to search the river. So I just don't have that under my belt. So I started last week going downriver a lot more into the brackish side of the water. And we ended up catching a redfish, a spot tail bass, um, which was a new idea or new species for Bill. But then I got me thinking, even farther down, we catch stingray, flounder, bluefish. It's not catfish, but there are catfish down there. And I hadn't really told you, but my biggest flathead I ever caught, I was in college and I was on a 14-foot John boat down close to salt water, and I caught it had to be a 60-pound flathead. Now maybe I was smaller back then, not too much. It was college, but that thing was giant. It looked like a giant yellow submarine, and it dragged me in that John boat around for a half an hour. Um, there was no YouTube back then. There was no, I didn't even have a cell phone back then. So there's no way to record it. So I know it doesn't count, but I want that feeling again. I want to be drug around by a fish that's so big.
What do you mean it doesn't count?
Well, I want to, well, because when you're younger, you're so rushed to get through things, right? You're so ready to get on to the next thing that you don't take time as we do now, or we should now, because we're about the same age, to take those mental photographs, to really soak it in. Like you catching that flathead. I'm catching a 20-pound flathead right now. I've never done this before. I'm going to remember this. This is amazing. I want to catch more flatheads now. Back then, I had a pack of cigarettes in my back pocket and, maybe a beer in the boat, and my buddies were in the other boat and we're, yeah, look at this. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that a 60-pound flathead was anything to be in awe about. I was like, that's just what people do. You just go out there and catch big fish, big whoop. I fished all my life. So, I'm different now. I really respect the fish. I respect the art of fishing, and I'm not a college kid anymore and doing things that I shouldn't. So I really want to get back into really river fishing and learning my river all the way down and mastering it to where maybe it won't be like the Potomac River where I can throw in the same spot, same area and catch 1,000 fish every time just because they're not the same zones. But I want to be able to go and target fish and be able to know that I'm going to be able to catch them and not just, hey, I think fish should be here and then kind of throwing bait in and maybe one will bite. So anyway, that's my goal for next year is I'm really going to do a lot of river fishing. I may not even go to the lake that much, but a year is a long time, so I'm not really going to say I'm not going to go to the lake.
Yeah.
But that's my goal, and I'm going to focus a lot more on the YouTube goals next year is making videos. I love the tournament scene. I love doing live streams, but I really want to concentrate on the art of making amazing videos, and so that's really what I'm going to focus on. And here this year, I got something coming up this weekend that's going to be awesome and epic, and for me anyway. So I'm excited to share that opportunity, and it has to do with traveling. So, traveling to fish is something that I'm able to do now. I have, an understanding work environment where, as long as I don't take advantage, it's like, yeah, they think that's cool too. So I can travel every once in a while and go fish with people. Like I'd love to go fish with Big Mike and go up to the dock with LG Bass and maybe one day make it out to Iowa and fish with Mike, so.
Well, I think your fish are kind of big over there. I'll just come there.
Yeah. Well, you don't like to travel, but I also want to do some bank fishing too, Mike. Like, going on and camping a lot. I want to do more camping and really catch fish off the bank and cook them, kind of like Spencer does. I mean, everything he does is like right up my alley. I know it's not up your alley. You're more of a city folk, but
Yeah,
I really
I
like
am.
I really like that, going out, finding the fish, spending the night, getting dirty. You know, I love that. I love that stuff. All right, your turn.
Okay, so I won't be doing those kinds of things.
Yet,
But
you
you,
never
you
know.
you
You said it
mentioned
yourself.
something
People
pretty
evolve.
interesting in there. You mentioned getting footage, making the videos. I think that means that you enjoy the editing, you enjoy putting it together, providing that awesome content. Um, Lauren actually was trying to watch your channel during the slow times of our
Trying to watch my
adventure.
channel.
Well, we didn't have any service out
Oh,
there in the
okay.
middle of the river.
I thought you meant she
But
couldn't stomach it.
no, she was
I was
trying
about to
to.
start crying.
See, don't be getting all negative now. She was trying to watch your channel while out there fishing on Spencer's boat. And I'm just like,
Yes.
oh, wow. And he's like, ouch. I was like, but then the service didn't work. So we just go throw that lure again. Uh, but that's interesting. Um, I didn't know that what you had just said about how those things are right up your alley and they really that's what you want to do some of that. I don't know if that means that you're inspired or that it's already in you and you want to do a little bit of that. I mean,
Well, I think I've always been inspired to do it. We used to do it when I was young. Like I've been out camping with buddies. We used to do it all the time. It's just, I think I'm confident now to do
mhm,
it by myself, and I'm not going to wait on people anymore to go out
yeah.
and do it with me. And Anna doesn't really like, you know, she she's not really keen on the idea of me doing overnight camping by myself. But
Mhm.
I mean, I got protection. I'll be all right.
Yeah, as long as you're equipped, you're prepared, you
Mm-hmm.
know the area, she knows where you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's as safe can be.
Mm-hmm.
Which answers my question. I was going to ask if she was interested in camping out there with you. Sounds
Oh,
like
she
that.
loves it. She
Oh,
loves
well, she
camping.
still
Yeah.
she still go even though she's not. It's just you being by yourself. That's what she's
No, no, she would
before
go with
someone else with you.
work schedule and stuff.
Oh,
But like she's gonna be coming out there to the meet and greet at least Saturday night. After she gets off work, she's gonna drive out and at least camp one night with us.
now you had
I got
mentioned you were
some
going to get.
freeze dried granola cereal for her.
That sounds good.
It
That
does. It
sounds good to
looks
me.
good too.
You had mentioned you were going to get an enclosure on your boat. Is that going to
Hmm.
happen soon?
Yeah, it's happening right after the camping trip.
All right.
So probably after work the next day on that Monday, I'll uh I'll drive the boat up to Manning, South Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from me, and I'll leave it with him for a couple weeks. And it's the perfect time because CatCon's coming up. I'll be going up to the James River the weekend before that to help host the King of the James tournament. So that's gonna be fun. And then who knows? I might go up and see Tom the first part of November and go up and see Mike. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Who knows?
King of the James tournament. So you're saying that Stand 3 is not the King of the James?
If he
Not yet.
wins that tournament, he could be king of the James. But there actually is a king of the James tournament. It's a big money tournament too.
I'd heard of it. That sounds
Mhm.
awesome. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
they asked me to come up and do I guess the digital portion of it. Either way, it's an excuse to go up and hang out.
Yeah. This is uh this is so neat. In the last 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes, you've mentioned things that I either had heard about and didn't think about or didn't know.
Mm.
And that leads me to the thought that runs in my head all the time. we're watching all these different shows. We're talking to all these different people. We're networking with all these people around the country, catfishing on and all these different lakes and rivers across the nation. I mean, this is such a crazy ride. It is such a crazy ride, and I talk to Lauren about it all the time. And there was a great example on Friday. She's sitting there talking to Spencer, and she's like, "Hey, Spencer, you know the brothers who fish?" And he's like, "Carl and Alex, the guys in England." And she's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, Carl and Alex." And she's talking about Palmetto, and she calls him Uncle Kevin. So he looks over at me, and he's just like, gives me the head nod. I'm like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Man, he does some cool stuff."
Hmm.
And that was your compliment.
Oh,
He's
appreciate
like,
it.
"Man, he does some cool stuff." I was like, "Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's just fun to be a part of it." And
Mm.
and so I was just explaining to him how if I get some random thought or some cool idea, I
Well, and
kick it
that's
to
what I was gonna
whoever I
say.
think. I kick it to
Like,
whoever I think could do it well.
yeah,
And
you're a huge part of helping with these cool ideas. So, I
and
mean,
look what it's become.
mhm.
This is so much fun. And
Mhm.
even a day before you asked me about this podcast, I would have never thought I would have agreed and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And even in the first one, I'm like all nervous and I'm like looking around and I'm like, "Oh, Kevin's gonna lead me through it. It's gonna be okay."
Mhm. We
And
made it.
and yeah, and it's so much fun to talk about fishing. And I think that's why this I pushed this idea, and I waited a little bit because sometimes I don't want to lead with a certain thing. I don't, like you said, I don't want to try to script everything like, okay, this week we're going to talk about that, which leads into next
Mhm.
week we're going to talk about this. We want it to be organic. We want it to
Mhm.
grow on its own and turn into whatever it's going to be. And also because everything changes so much. Look at it now. Next week you and I may be talking about uh
Oh, I
our
know what we'll
favorite.
be talking about.
Oh yeah. There's so much stuff, and it's so great, but it just it just reminds me that this is a crazy fun ride.
Mhm.
And to me, it's so amazing that there's all these people out there, you know, Arizona, California, um, Pennsylvania, Maryland, South Carolina, Iowa, Louisiana, and everywhere in between. And here we are, having a good
Mhm.
time, talking about fishing, watching people live fish. I mean, watching
I th
Big Mike fish last night,
I think
and
what I
he
look forward to the most though, Mike, not to cut you off, but although this is great, I can't wait till events like CatCon so that we can actually shake hands and then like have a conversation where we don't have to worry about, yeah, we've been online for 4 hours, or
yeah,
whatever. We can just sit there and just talk. And if we get hungry, we'll go get some fries or a steak or some wings.
yeah.
Mm, mm, mm.
Oh, yeah. We'll be in
So,
Kansas City. There's gonna be some good food
so we
opportunities.
go get some wings and just continue to talk about fishing. And then, that's and then meet people like Big Mike and Tom and
Yeah,
and
and they were talking about that last night. They're like, "Hey, who's going to
mhm,
Kansas City? That's in a month. Who's going to
mhm.
Kansas City? That's in a month." And I gotta
That's
tell you,
right around the corner.
I don't really plan on anything until it's that week
Mhm.
because I'm just in that daily, weekly grind where I'm just grinding. And,
Yeah.
uh, and I will warn you right now, I'm not gonna shake your hand. I am gonna pick you up and give you a hug.
I don't know
And
about picking. You might injure
and
your back again.
and people might see it and they might think they're like, "Oh, what's going on over there?"
Are
But
those guys,
that's
no,
what
no, no.
that's what Lauren was saying. She's just like she's like, "Well, you're friends, so you'll give him a hug, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's gonna be a
Yeah,
hug involved."
absolutely. There'll
Yeah,
be lots of hugging at CatCon. By the
absolutely.
way, if y'all are interested in meeting Mike and I, you can go check out the catfishconference.com website. You can get tickets and see the hotel accommodations and the dates. And we're talking about November 19th and 20th. which is in Kansas City, Missouri, at Bartle Hall. I believe that's the name of it. And you can get tickets. Tickets are cheap. Hotel room. They have a block of hotel rooms for $119 a night. Can't beat that. At the Crown Plaza, you got to get your room while they last, though. But yeah, so come on out, CatCon Kansas City. If you can't make Kansas City next month, then there's another one in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's the original one. But a lot of people will be there too. More East Coasters will be at that one, I imagine. But it's a great place to come talk about fishing, talk about YouTube, podcasts, and then you can actually pick up items that you've seen only online or only on YouTube, and you can actually try them out. You can test the wiggle in them. You can reel the reels. You can look at the lines, the boats, which there are not going to be too many boats this year, apparently. Rod holders, anything your mind can imagine for the sport of catfishing. Now, it is catfish specific. So those of you who listen that, are more bassers or whatever, you might want to check out some other events. But if you want to meet us or you just want to come out and hang out with people that like fishing, you can't beat it, especially if you're in the area.
Yeah.
But I will be live streaming it, though. We'll be live streaming some of the events.
I thought they put something out today that if you bought a mug, you'd get free tickets to go into the CatCon.
Did they? I must have missed that.
Yeah,
That's pretty
somebody
cool.
sent it to me, and I think it was the Mexigato.
And you're like, I already got tickets, homie.
I was like, I bought your coffee mugs. I got Mexicat coffee mugs.
Yeah, man.
This for?
But my goals, I guess, just to wrap up the show here, last 4 minutes. For the rest of the year, I have events planned, and I just want to do those events to the best of my ability, so the community will be, will enjoy the content that I provide, and then I want to continue to fish. It's fall season. It's supposed to be the best time to fish, is what I hear. I've never had too much luck fall fishing. I've seen more manatees in the fall in the past year than I have big catfish. So, I'm hoping to turn that around, and maybe on this camping trip in a couple of weeks, I'll be able to find a good one. What about you, Mike? Round out the rest of the year for you. We're getting close to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's almost sad. But what I will say is Lauren's caught lots of species this year.
Yes, she has.
And I just caught a flathead. So I'm gonna have to call this fall fishing so far very awesome and very enjoyable.
So you're riding high right now.
I need more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody asked me, all my guys who take any interest in me at work, they're like, well, did you catch anything? You take time off. We know you're fishing. So I showed a few of them the pictures, and the rest of them, I just showed them the look in my eye, and I'm like, I need more of this in my life. And
I get a flathead. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting because we all have dreams, we all have aspirations, but then all of us do dream at night. So here I am. I can dream in color, and I can control my dreams. And I got to tell you, I've been catching some big flathead the last couple of months. So it is
it's
very
funny you mentioned that.
Very
man.
Awesome.
You know what? If I have a fishing dream, you know what it always is?
A gar?
The bobber going under.
Oh, the baba.
It's always about the little peg float, a little 1.5-inch peg float, and it's always a big brim pulling it down, or a big shell cracker. That's just like, I have dreams about. That's the most exciting thing. And I've caught a few big fish, and the excitement of that rod going down is awesome. But in my dreams, when I can tell that I haven't been fishing, and my mind's like, Kevin, you need to go out there. You need to go out there. I imagine that float going under. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just a memory from my childhood, or maybe that's really what I enjoy the most. I don't know.
Now you'd gone out and you had done some night fishing in the last couple weeks. Had
Hmm.
you thought to put out one of those big catfish bobbers?
No, because mostly we were drifting,
Uh-huh.
and we
Okay.
were drifting deep. So
But
it
if you
wasn't.
anchored, you would consider it, right? In the right
Yeah,
scenario.
if I was in, and so when I go on a camping trip, I'll take a few with me. We went when we went last year. The thumbnail was a big pink bobber, so we caught 2 or 3 fish on the bobbers last year. So that's actually an awesome area to use it because it's like in a little back cove type area where there's no current, and so if the bobber's in a different spot when you look at it, the chances are the fish the fish is on there. So, and that's what they ended up doing was picking it up and swimming with it,
I
which is
bought
kind of
some of
exciting.
those large whisker seeker bobbers because I
Mm.
placed an order for a couple things that I needed, and then I figured, well, if I'm gonna get a few things that I need, I get a
Might
few
as well
things that
throw
I
them on
want.
there. Yeah, might as well.
And Lauren has specifically watched river certified videos with those bobbers, and
Mm,
she's like, I want to
mhm.
catch a fish on a bobber like that. I'm like, okay, well, I'll watch the video. I'll learn
Now
how to
those have
rig
a
it up.
blinking light on them.
I didn't get that model.
Mm.
This is just a real large,
The big orange one.
yeah, big orange cylinder
Mhm.
looking thing. And honestly, she would be just as happy holding it in the package as even trying to fish with it. But again, great content out there. Has a video exactly how to rig it up like he does. So I'm going to give it a shot. And if it's not too windy, then or if the wind's going in a direction that I think is favorable, you know, we got a shot. We can put a hunk of bait on that thing and
Put you a live bluegill on there, man. Just let him go for it.
yeah, float him out, sail him out
Mhm.
there and let him go. So I'm definitely going to get a rod rigged up with one of those in the next couple days because Saturday could be the day. I don't know.
Mhm.
Saturday
And
could be the day.
you got those bait runners, man. You just put it on
Yep.
there and put on the bait runner when you hear the zing zing.
Yep, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
So, and it's a different kind of excitement.
Mhm.
And that's always part of a goal. Part of the
Mhm.
goal is that excitement for her
Mhm.
and listening to her because she watches probably more videos than I do when we're at home, and she's taking in that information as well and processing it. So she has a different set of eyes, different way of thinking, and it just because she's 5 doesn't make her wrong. I've
Meanwhile,
learned that. I've learned that, you
meanwhile,
know.
Dad's over in the corner, holding his hands up and his fingers tapping right in front of his face. Yes, child. Soak it in, child.
Yep.
You will not play with Barbies any longer.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, Kevin. She's already determined who in her kindergarten class she's going to marry in
You
the
will
future.
find an
And
appropriate son-in-law for me to fish with.
she's very interested in cooking as well, which is good.
Hey, there you go.
That will
That's
help. That
awesome.
will help the household quite a bit. She started off by making lunch meat sandwiches, and I got to
Nice.
tell you, she does make a nice, organized lunch meat sandwich.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
you had me at meat, so I
she's
mean,
learning. Yeah, she is learning, and she's enthusiastic about it. So who isn't drawn to that sort of enthusiasm? I know usually I sit here and I'm kind of quiet, and maybe this is the show where everybody sees how much I really do babble and how much I really do want it. I mean, I want to fish.
uh-huh.
I want to fish. I want to feel that serenity of fishing. I want to catch fish. I don't go out thinking every single time, oh, I want to catch a fish bigger than the last fish because this year, until last Friday, the best fight that I had had was a 6-pound channel cat, and it was fantastic. And it definitely lasted longer
Mhm.
than my battle on Friday night. Um, and that's gear specific. because I was using a medium light rod against
Mhm.
a 6-pound channel cat, an angry 6-pound channel cat. And this last Friday, I had a medium heavy,
Mhm.
uh, a big reel with 65-pound braid, and I was able to fight the flathead straight up, and he didn't seem so angry. Lauren named him Smoochie, and no, I did not give Smoochie a kiss,
Well,
but
that
it was
being said, Mike,
it was a great time. It was a great
we-
who can't be inspired by that?
I
So,
know, right? Well, we don't want you kissing fish and talking about kissing fish, so we'll leave it at that. Well, Mike, it's been a great show, man. I hope that our audience enjoyed it. Thank you for thinking through this topic and really making it interesting, man. I appreciate it.
I had fun. I had fun with all of this. I was
Awesome.
I was blown away last week with all the
Mhm.
information that our
Oh yeah,
amazing
Ray
guest
was
provided.
awesome. Mhm.
Oh, amazing. And maybe that was all part of this too,
Mhm.
because he's like, "Oh, you gotta at least go to a tournament." And in my head, I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, I don't." He's like, "Yeah, you got, and I know you've done a few tournaments,
Mhm.
Kevin, and you continue to do a few tournaments, and then you host the online tournaments.
Yeah. Well, that's a
And
different thing. I see what he's saying. You need to go to a
yeah,
tournament and
yeah,
feel the atmosphere of it.
yep.
It's pretty unique. Well, yeah. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, you're missing a great episode about the history of catfish tournaments. We had Mr. Ray Ferguson up talking about that, and he was a wealth of knowledge, and it was just a great time we had with him, and he was more than willing to share everything he knew about the history of catfish tournaments, and then we kind of talked about how they evolved. So don't forget that if you like this content and you want to support it, you can go to shoppalmettocats.com. Check out some Palmetto Cats merch. We got hats and shirts and towels and shorts and shoot, we even got sandals, Michael. We got all kinds of stuff in there. You can also check out the events page where you can register for some of my online tournaments. We also have a community tab where you can see a community calendar of events and tournaments coming up on YouTube. So go check that out. Uh, the link is in the description for the website. There's also some other ways that you can support the channel in the description here on YouTube, and of course I have discount codes to some fishing gear, Mike, that our guests and our listeners can enjoy. So
I'm trying to
check
wait for
that out.
CatCon, but I know I won't make it.
You got to be strong.
Yep, I'm
That being
trying.
said, I'm going to give thanks and we're going to get out of here. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another awesome show. Thank you for fishing. Lord, fishing has shaped our lives and brought us together. And without fishing, a lot of us probably wouldn't have met each other. And that would have been a shame, Lord, because I value all the people I've met through this wonderful sport of catfishing. And I just thank you for that. Thank you for the show. I thank you for the opportunity to do it. And I just ask that you bless everyone listening and bless their weeks to come and bring them back next week so we can talk about more fishing. I give you all the honor and glory. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Motor Red. That's another story. Until next time.